Well, hello everybody. I'm Steve Russell. I'm from Irdeto, and I'm VP Solutions at Irdeto. Irdeto has been in the market for the best part of 50 years, working with operators and streamers, pay TV and streamers, to enable the delivery of integrated, aggregated TV experiences in a secure way. So I run a solutions team, and one of the things that I encourage the team to do, and I think this is one of the reasons that Irdeto's growing within a tough sector, is to take an outside-in perspective. Don't think about the technology, think about the market. And today's panel, this discussion, is an example of where we're doing that. What we've done is work with Caretta, and we've kind of sponsored a survey with Caretta. So let's talk about the survey. It's over 60 operators worldwide. It was carried out in the last 3 months, so this is fresh. It's actually released on Friday this week. Those operators range from as little as 100,000 subscribers right the way up into over 10 million subscribers, a worldwide base. Captures data points as well as discussion-based inputs. And really, it's about trying to take the pulse of that industry, trying to understand what is going on within that industry. And yes, super aggregation is one of the themes that come out of it, but there's a lot more than that. I'm really fortunate to have two wonderful people to discuss this with me. One is Anette Schaefer. Annette's with the big picture, but she's been an industry analyst, a thought leader in the industry for many years. So welcome, Annette.
Thank you.
And we've got Tom Morrod, who's I think of as being Mr. Caretta. Founder of Caretta, is that right?
Co-founder.
A co-founder.
My co-founder.
There's other people in the room, they're from Caretta as well, so we need to be careful. But playing a key role in this research and a director of the organisation today. So the format's this. I'm going to try and summarise very quickly what the report said and what I saw as the main data points, and then we'll break those down into some discussion between the three of us. And I'm going to break it down into 4 points. The first is quite sobering, really. What comes thick and fast through the research is what a tough place it is to be an operator at the moment. So we've got a landscape that's characterised by more competition than ever, the reality of churn, the tough position of churn, declining ARPU, and a real need comes through from the research in terms of the desire to try and find those new income streams, whether that's through additional services, aggregated services, bundled services, or through new ways to create revenue streams like direct personalized advertising, different ways of monetizing the audience. Second big theme is kind of the reaction to that pressurized market, and that theme is around scale, a desire to get to more devices, a desire to aggregate more sources of content, whether that's fast, whether that's linear, whether that's third-party applications, whether there's other forms of entertainment, whether there's insurance services. It's more. I want to bring more into the service bundle. And that's breaking out of entertainment into the other sources of lifestyle choices as well. And that's very much come through in the earlier panel. That thing bundling is in our DNA. That's really come through the research. Like we needed a new buzzword, super aggregation is a response to that. And the research is interesting in that it breaks down what is the feeling of super aggregation that's coming back. And it's about harmonizing that broadcast and the streaming platforms. So rather than seeing these as islands, bringing them together to create a harmonized experience, it's about trying to create a joined-up user experience across those. And I think every operator is seeing the fragmented consumer landscape that's happened in the last 10 years. They believe that there's an opportunity to bring that back into a joined-up offer again, and they want to play that role. While driving operational efficiency into the model, trying to take out cost from the business, adding services in, and bundling together to kind of overcome the old fragmentation. And the final bit that I would say as a big summary from it is that the way in which these organizations are building the services is changing. So, you know, the old operator mentality of build as much as possible in-house is changing. Over 70% have less than 100 developers in their organization. And if you think trying to compete with the tech giants, with the small development team, what's the answer? It's partnering. You know, it's partner with organizations that are specialists in the areas of technology in order to build that new ecosystem, that new infrastructure. So that's the summary of the report. Let's talk about it. That's enough for me for the moment. Anette, super aggregation seems to be shaping the industry. What do you see, talking to operators?
It depends on when you look at the size of the operators, first of all. I think who's able to aggregate and does a super aggregation strategy. But I think aggregation or bundling per se is for most of the operators key for many years. So you give the customer more and more, and that should prevent churn. It should increase customer lifetime value, all the good KPIs that we know running these businesses. And I think the question is not to do it, so how to do it and how to make it efficient. And I think what we heard already from Malte, from Swisscom, it's not an easy task to do. And it's not only from a technical standpoint that you have all the APIs in place to onboard all these partners, but also from a streamlined user experience, that the customer finds what he's looking for, that he understands the business model, that he has the same sort of service that he already gets from the OTT direct, so he can always churn whenever he likes. So there's a lot of form factors in place that needs to be thought through, and I think time is also very critical, time to market, to get this out and market to the consumer. So
I mean, there's a lot of tricks you've got to pull off then in parallel while getting to market quick.
Right.
Does that? Are you kind of also saying there that there's a minimum size of operator that can do this efficiently, or not?
I think this is mostly, I think, not a question for the operator, it's a question for the partner, because what we have seen and been in these negotiations, and I can only say that can take ages, is that you have to have a certain amount of subscribers, otherwise they won't even not talk to you. Because when you look at the partners, often you need to certify your operations, even you have the same operations in multi-countries, the same software stack, the same CPE stack. It doesn't matter, each country needs to be certified individually, and that takes time to go to market.
Yeah, so there's a business proposition you've got to build, but then you've got to actually go through the technical compliance with the aggregated services to enable their content to arrive on your screen, right?
Correct.
Okay, good.
But also the devices individually, even if you have the same devices in multiple markets, it could be the same chipset, the same cast DRM system, it needs to be certified.
Yeah, none of these guys are switching out set-top boxes anytime soon, so it's kind of how do you fit within their current landscape.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Tom, thanks for doing the research with us. What does the data tell you?
That's very open-ended. So I'd say the big thing that's going on in the industry is everyone is, like, with the very, very few lucky exceptions, pretty much everyone is worried about money. It's like it's become a very commercially focused and much less engineering focused discussion. So, you know, biggest concerns that we saw. I'm a big fan of primary research as an analyst, so I encourage you all to read the report when it comes out. But primary research is one of the best ways, and doing surveys like this one is one of the best ways that we can actually get proper data from lots of people who are in the industry and what they think and what they feel, and doing it in a consistent way. And everyone does feel concerned about, you know, subscriber pressure, ARPU pressure, and there's a lot of factors around cost and efficiency. The lighting is doing crazy things. It's not just me, is it?
It's like in a warp.
I know. Maybe it's trying to get the vibe
Aggregated light sources.
Yeah.
It's gone all red now. So there's a lot of things about efficiencies, making sure that you can run things on a single platform. So, you know, we talk to operators, and they're saying about 80% of operators that we're talking to have aggregated their linear back-end streaming stuff with their OTT stuff. So all of the encoding and all of that, all of those elements have been simplified. They don't have the additional costs associated with that. But then the other side of it is investing in trying to make more money. So lots of experiments around ad tech, lots of experiments around, bringing in analytics and metadata and trying to find a way of creating a better user experience, creating more engagement with the customers. And this is where the super aggregation play really happens. It's how do we make this platform, this service, into something that we can get more money out of, and at the same time, that money seems to be going down. Mm-hmm. We see telcos launching bundles with, $10 a month TV. So all of these factors, I got a really good quote at some point. It was more but simpler. So it's like, do more costs, but do it in a way that's cheaper and simpler and more efficient. And that's quite complicated to do. And so how do you get from, this problem statement that you've got to do many different things and do it all more efficiently and cheaper with the resources that you have at your disposal? And that, I think, is the real challenge that we're seeing in the industry.
Yeah, Annette, one of the things you said to me was around it's the strategy not to bundle entertainment but also obviously bring in the cable and the mobile, the kind of the blended package, and then the deal with the app aggregators. If I'm playing with a Netflix or a Prime, the kind of operator strategy is not just about bundling together the entertainment, but using the relationship with the telco to build out the network proposition as well. Do you want to speak to that?
Yes, sometimes it's a little bit overlooked to make these services run in the operator's networks that sometimes require some heavy lifting also on the operator side, or bringing their own equipment into the data centers. And that the quality of service or the quality of service assurance is there. And sometimes that's a little bit overlooked or not really been thought through. It looks always good to have a great partnering deal with one of the big streamers, but then it gets really to the delivery and to make that work. You often have to factor in much more time to prepare that so that the user experience stays the same, because you as an operator, you're responsible for the smooth of the network and the experience, and that's pretty much your responsibility, right? And that sometimes requires some heavy lifting.
Yeah, okay. And I love that kind of holistic strategy between creating an entertainment bundle for the consumer while also thinking about how do I drive core network usage and build out the network infrastructure as well.
Yeah, also the OSS, BSS, all the APIs that needs. We say a good OTT partner is how I measure it is how solid the API stack is, and how easy you can unplug and integrate that into your CRM systems and your operational systems.
So when we talk, we've heard a few people saying it's not easy to do this stuff. And is that both about that back-end plumbing into the app provider ecosystems that you're working with, but also about how do you bring together aggregated metadata and aggregate data across the view in order to recommend the best next app or experience for the consumer? Are they all equal challenges?
Yeah, I think they're not equal challenges, but I think on the recommendation side, metadata, some of the AI will resolve that in the future, but it's key is the user experience, that if you onboard a new partner, that the user experience stays the same. And as more partner you aggregate, as more complex it gets. Right?
Yeah.
And as we also learned from our previous speakers, it takes time. It takes until these partnering agreements come into place and really been put in front of the customer.
No, very good. Anything to add to that one, Tom, or not?
I mean, the big underlying trends are towards making sure that you can do things faster and cheaper, and you can do things more. I mean, this works for
not asking for much, right?
And you can do things more flexibly. Yeah. You're not locked into a particular vendor, and overall, this kind of focus on the commercials, the total cost of ownership. I mean, for the vendors in the room, total cost of ownership is the way to phrase it, because that's how everyone is kind of calculating back on what really matters. But that's enacted through good integration partners, good APIs, flexibility, being really mindful of the fact that you're not trying to lock people into long-term, deals. You're trying to make it easy for decisions to switch partners or to bring in different components, because the way that pay TV operators and telcos are now buying has moved from monolithic or bigger systems, and this has even happened in the last couple of years, we can see that there's been a pretty marked reduction in the number of big new system builds and towards more of a componentized, upgrade, very targeted investment. And that's a complicated thing to do. You have to know what you're trying to, innovate on in an environment where you will have fewer than 100 developers. The numbers are really interesting. About 25% of operators have no developers, and 75% have fewer than 100 developers. And most of those guys are going to be, most of the developers are going to be working on maintaining the platform as it is, rather than innovating at a level where you can compete with the resourcing of Meta, YouTube, or Netflix. It's difficult for hundreds of companies to be innovating on all of these really intricate front-end engagement and data components when they only have a handful of people who are mostly making sure that the apps don't fall over next week. So all of that points towards an industry that actually needs a lot more vendor support, and a lot more targeted vendor support, and fewer of these big system sales that are that maybe lock you in for 10 years, and you have an app that's cycling at a different rate to the encoders, and then somebody gets annoyed because they can't do some feature 5 years down the line. That stuff is that the industry has moved away from that, but equally they don't have resources to build this stuff in-house anymore. So the balance is that there's a lot more targeted and thoughtful investment, and a lot more thought put into who fits into helping with that investment and supporting those kind of platforms, and making sure that they're future-proofed and they can evolve as the need evolves.
So that old kind of monolithic pay TV stack model is dead, I guess the research is telling us quite clearly.
I think we've moved very strongly away from that, but we also are not in a world where very many operators have the resources or capabilities to take everything in-house and build everything out from first principle, from the ground up.
And is there much in the research of actually single provider that, so I'll just work with one big system integrator and give them the entire problem, or is it more best of breed combination with in-house teams?
So I think that, there is definitely still a role for systems integrators, and there's a chunk of the market that likes to have one throat to choke, but I think it's less than we were expecting, and it seems to be moving. About half of the customization that happens is done in-house, and about a quarter is done by integrators and a quarter done by the vendors directly. So if you look at the way that operators are really using their resources, it's for maintenance and customization, in-house customization, but it's not for building. They're not building the core components. They're plugging them together and making sure they don't fall over.
Got it. And Annette, what's your take there?
Yeah, that goes back to what we discussed in the beginning. It's the resource question. And I think that's becoming more critical, and I can really support what Tom just said. Before the Ukrainian war, a lot of people used facilities in Eastern Europe or Central Europe, and they're gone now. And also because of what's happening, a lot of companies try to insource a lot. But on the other hand, as you said, talent and knowledge is scarce, and at the same time, so you need to find a balanced strategy between what you can maintain and keep on-prem and develop, and which kind of your innovation stack, or what kind of features and functions on your roadmap you can probably outsource or partner with to make sure you stay ahead of the game, or you stay in the game. But I think it's came in the last, say, 2-3 years much more complex than it was maybe before. But there's a couple of companies that are very lucky that have a team on site. I would say companies the size of Sky, Comcast, they have enough their own developers, but not on all of the, say, telco operators who maintaining a video stack have the same sort of resources available to them. So it really depends where you come from.
Yeah, and that breadth of skills that you need in order to succeed, thrive, compete, and win are wider than ever before as well. Right. And that's where at Irdeto our focus is on partnering with those operators to provide the kind of joined up integrated experience side of that, working with others. Look, we're timing out. I was hoping there's a QR code to share so that you can all download the report. Oh, there we go, we have got it. So let me encourage you, it's free. It's a free report. We might ask for a little bit of contact details back, but let's get it out there. Do use it. I think some fantastic stuff within it. Tom, Annette, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion. Thank you for your inputs. It's been really great. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.